Hey guys, it's Jenna Elfman from Fear the Walking Dead. I play Laura. No, I play Naomi. No, I play June. I play June on Fear the Walking Dead. And you're listening to the Fear the Walking Dead talk through on Talk Through Media.
Hey, I'm Lindsley Register, and I play Lara on The Walking Dead. You're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through on Talk Through Media.
Hey, this is Ross Marquand, and you're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through.
Awesome. Hey, this is Mick Stahl, and you're listening to Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through.
Cool.
Hey survivors, welcome to episode 86 of Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through. I'm Kyle.
I'm Brian.
I'm LT.
And so we'll be covering Fear the Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 3, titled Cindy Hawkins, and some coverage of The Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 5, and I'm not going to be able to say this, Quatervois. Quatervois.
Quatervois. Cater voice.
Cater voice.
Quater voice.
Well, yeah, you get it.
What does that even mean, by the way?
I to look
All
it
right.
up. But
Well, it is my sole responsibility in life to look up all things. So,
And now stand by as Brian looks up.
means a crossroad or a critical decision or turning point in one's life.
Quatervois.
And that definition comes from the Walking Dead wiki.
Hey,
So
well,
it's kind of circular.
Yep. Well, hey, that works. All right, but first we have some feedback about our last podcast, Fear the Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 2, titled 6 Hours, and World Beyond Season 2, Episode 4, Family is a 4-letter word. And this all comes from Erin from the internet. She says, it does have to state that Karen David carried the episode like a boss. That was a quote from me. Best part of what little I watched. I don't care about Morgan, as you know, so I skipped most of the episode, but I saw the Karen stuff was good and more of what I'd love to see instead of Jones. She said about our podcast last week, again, it's Alicia to kill Strand, no one else. I'm glad you enjoyed the episode, Brian, but I'm with Kyle and LT. I was ready to hard pass on it. Different strokes for different folks. Smiley face.
Well, I liked it a little less after getting pointed in the proper direction for several things. I was
You're welcome, Brian.
I was in denial. Let's just say I wanted to like it, so I was conveniently avoiding thinking about certain parts of the episode. So that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it.
All right, sounds good. She continues on. Grace was the best part of what I watched for sure, but I hated it at the end. She caved essentially and has seemingly forgotten everything she said up until that point, just because she bonded a bit with Mo and found food under the sub, which of course they did because God forbid Morgan Jones has to work for anything on the series. I would have been way more dramatic if she went off and died at the end of this, or even took her own life, because as she said, this is not a place she wants to be. It was this dramatic build-up for nothing in the end. Oh, I wouldn't want to see her die, but she goes on, I consistently have Madison withdrawals, Kyle. I miss her so much, and I totally agree. Give me more Alicia for sure, and her leading this series instead, as she should have hosted Madison anyways. I'm thinking LT is going to be right. It will be Padre Island. The sad rumor is Alicia isn't going to show up until the second half of the season. I'm telling you, I think Alicia is done with the series. Losing Kim was a big thing to her and Coleman, and then you have her separated from others for extended periods of time, and she only gets maybe 10 minutes of screen time a season now, when she knows she's an original lead character and Fear was based on the Clark's journey to survive, and she's the last Clark. I get her being mad. We may be surprised, but I feel Alicia Dedmon Carey is all but contractually checked out on the series, and if she goes, I can kind of see Coleman not being far behind because he gets more screen time than her. He would lose another friend he's used to working with, and it just wouldn't be as worth it anymore potentially. And when you make thousands of dollars like actors do, it's not always about the money. Heck, even people who don't make that quit projects because something matters more to them than money at that point. If they want her to stay, they're going to have to start treating her like the lead she was and was growing to be in season 3 and early season 4 before Morgan came and destroyed everything. We don't know if that's Alicia's situation.
Yeah, I don't think so. Honestly, I think this is all COVID related.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning more towards that. It's just things got so screwed up that it was like they had to adjust, and the adjustments are what they are. And we're getting the same kind of situation as the last season, where they're like we're doing like focused character contained episodes where it's like we only see a couple of them, and it's like it's all about them and their situation, and then we move on to the next one, and then in the last half, then they all kind of come together, and then that's where it all happens. So whether or not that was like, oh, this is what we could shoot when we could get the actors at that time. Obviously they shoot things out of sequence. That's not like they do it one after another. So it could have just been like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And anyways, but
yeah. And like, in the main show, Eleanor Matsura, she was famously not in that one episode that was, that heavily princess episode, at the train station or whatever it is. And that was because of COVID. She was in England and could not get back to the States. So the parts that she was in, it was basically just, like voiceover stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the case of Alicia, either they didn't have anything that could be voiceover, or I don't know, they planned to use her a different way or whatever. But as far as I know, that's what it's also, she's going to be directing this season. So to me, if she's going to be directing, that sounds to me like she's not done with the show,
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take.
Yeah, I think she's just stuck out of the country and was in lockdown wherever she was and couldn't get back.
Right.
Yeah, and they had to make adjustments, and they did, and that's what's kind of coming out of the season. But we're going to see her. The last half, obviously, is going to be when they were able to do more stuff and then get everybody in, and like it's. I think we have more. It just kind of sucks, but we just have to kind of see where it goes, and we still have plenty more episodes.
And this whole radio thing, it may be a play to what we're eventually going to see Alicia's character do. Like maybe they'll first reach her by radio, and they'll have her on via radio, and then only after she's actually made it back to the States, we actually see her again. But maybe the first couple of times that we actually hear from Alicia, she'll be in Australia, and she will like record her stuff in a sound stage or whatever, and
on Zoom. A Zoom call.
It won't be a Zoom call.
Well, and I think it's safe to say that we're going to notice the restrictions lifting as the series goes on.
Yeah,
because I have it on good information. A little birdie told me that the duo-ness of things we've been seeing will probably be stopping in the near future.
The duo-ness?
As far as John and June, Morgan and Grace.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the little bottle up, or just like
Right. The fact that, as you pointed out, we only had 2 or 3 actors in the same space at the same time.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. I'm that's what I'm expecting. So we just kind of get through these next however many more episodes, and then things will start coming together, and hopefully it will get better. All right, well, I'll continue. Aaron says, I think he's starting to get up off his ideals. And that was a quote. Can Morgan get up off the screen time count also, Brian? Ha.
I don't have any control over that, so.
Yes, we all don't. And then she says, what do you mean you can't go outside, Kyle? They go outside all the time. What is logic? Wait, what, Brian? Is it from here? Where's your origin, sir?
I was born a mile from the U.S. border in Canada, in a town called Windsor, Ontario. So that's my origin story.
He comes from a land up over.
Yeah, it's literally the only place in Canada that is actually south of the United States. So Windsor, Ontario. You can look it up. It's sort of a part of the Metro Detroit area, but it's actually Windsor is Detroit's biggest suburb, except it's not a suburb because it's in a different country. So
I was going to say, and too, he lives in Florida, and everybody knows nobody's actually from here that lives in Florida.
Right.
They're all from New York.
Half the people that are living in Florida are snowbirds from Canada. Especially if they're over 65, which I'm not, but anyway.
Oh, all right. Well, continue on. She said, hot? We're going to have a nuclear winter next season. Come on. I guess I was talking about Texas being hot. There's probably maps on the sub they could look at also to see Padre Island. I'm with Kyle. Forget having knowledge of subs, period. You're trying to survive, so why wouldn't you turn that place upside down looking for supplies of all kinds? I agree with Renee. We don't need the bounty hunter plot back. I will second that.
It's not just Renee.
Yeah, it's Dieta. It's pretty
it's
much
everybody.
LOL to Diesel Rabbit. It's just funny to hear you all say those two words combined. Smiley face. LOL to LTs, but that's just me. Regarding the relative's head in a box. Smiley face. In response to the feedback, she said, it's fine, Brian. And you're slowly breaking Brian down, LT. Ha!
This is feeling very play-by-play.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And last, she says, all my zombies. If you're going to invoke Lucci, LT, you go all the way. And then wink face. Thank you, Aaron. I like their little play-by-play. It's fun. All right. Well, next comes Clint from Indianapolis. You want to take that, LT?
I shall. Clint says, just watched 6 hours, and overall I enjoyed the episode. 7.8 Walking Dead shopping carts out of 10. But over the course of the hour, I was ready for Morgan to just take out Grace because of her hysterics. He says, I did like the reveal of the bounty hunter's brother now on the trail of Morgan. How much time has passed since his brother died? The head seems a bit too fresh. And he finishes up by saying, we'll listen to the podcast for this episode later today, so keep up the great work, guys. And thank you, Clint.
Thank you. Well, the whole thing, it's like, how did the head survive a nuclear blast? How did it survive? There are so many things that survived. And
Yes.
how long did it survive?
That's some high-speed mil-spec corrugated cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'll just leave it at that. I saw next week we're going to see more of the bounty hunter, and it's like you guys are just throwing too much stuff against the wall and then don't want it to stick. Anyways. All right. Well, last, I put this in here from Alma from Sacramento. She had commented, I think, on one of the ratings posts that you put up, Brian, and she just said, I'm totally enjoying the podcast, although I'm not watching Fear. I continue to listen. She's like, keep it going, kiss face. So thank you, Alma. I'm glad that you're listening. And, I guess, February comes around and we'll have The Walking Dead. So hopefully we will hear from you then. But
thank you.
If you have, but as always, like if you have anything, even if you might not watching and maybe catch a little tidbit, send us some comments. All right. Well, that was everything from last week's episode. So let's go into this week. This week's Fear the Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 3, titled Cindy Hawkins, written by Nick Bernardone and Jacob Pinion. Directed by Ron Underwood, and the description is Dory and June make the best of Teddy's bunker until its history is uncovered. All right. Well, let's go into our ratings. I actually gave it a better rating, obviously, than last week, because I just didn't really care for last week. But this week I gave it 7 Teddy Chambers of Horrors.
And my rating was less than last week. Although, if you recall, I did start at a 9, and it eventually went down to a 7.1. But my rating this week is a 7. Manic Schools of Embalming. Or 7 convenient earthquakes. Well, depends on what you consider convenient. Coincidental earthquakes maybe is better. Coincidental earthquakes.
Yeah. I think I'll be complaining about that later. And of course, I gave it a 6.97 since I had to go under you guys. But I gave it a 6.97. I see dead people. Or, well, I'd go nuts if I had to play Life for 50 days straight.
I used to like Life.
Yeah, me too.
Then I grew up.
Right. I liked Life when I was like 12.
Yeah, I was kind of sad to see that that was the only board game that they had.
There was a joke there. I liked Life, and then I actually had to play B.
You liked Life until you grew up.
Until I actually had to experience Life. Well, I thought it was funny.
Well, all right. Well, let's go into our listeners' ratings. Dieta from Detroit, she says, rate this episode 8 out of 10. I know I'm not the Dory you thought you'd be spending your days with. Sad face, cry face. Just made me miss John all over again.
Glenn from Toronto says 7 out of 10. Some more ugly mustard.
Renee from Atlanta did not like this one. She says 4 out of 10, and that's being nice. Shrug, shrug.
And Aaron from the internet gave it 4 green filters out of 10. And there's only 4 for June because the rest was bad. All right. Well, thank you, listeners. Let's go into our awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. All right. Well, our first awesome sauce comes from Megan from Pennsylvania. And she says, my top moment of the entire episode was when John Sr. killed zombie charred Dakota again. I want to see her die every episode. I think that was a little love note to the fans. Heart, zombie, lots of emojis.
Yeah. Good reason why it wasn't a 6.
Yeah. And Dieta replied back to her comment saying, I agree with you 100%. Laughing face, laughing face, laughing face. Yeah. I think I say something a little bit later about that. So,
yep.
Let's go on.
Dieta from Detroit says, John Dory Sr. not leaving June to fend for herself after listening to the ghost. Then he woke up out of his stupor in time, taking down the unknown intruders all by himself, shaking hands and all.
Glennis from Toronto simply says, no crying baby.
I love that.
I think you and Glennis are in lockstep there.
Yes.
She says, no crying baby bliss, exclamation point with a big smiley face.
Yes. Thank you, Glennis, because I totally was right there with you. All right, Renee from Atlanta. She said, I can't think of a darn thing. This show is getting more ridiculous each week. JD Sr. killing Dakota wasn't enough to save this episode, so I cannot even give that an awesome sauce. Aw, Renee.
Yes, but
Get it?
But yet here it is.
Yep.
And Aaron from the internet says June. She showed logic at points and was the only one who brought non-repetitive story points to this episode.
Awesome. All right, thank you, listeners. Good, awesome sauces. So I guess let's just go into ours. I don't know if any of you want to start before me. I'll just start going through it.
Mine is dependent upon yours.
Okay. Well, for one, I was in agreement with everybody else. It was seeing Dakota's charred undead remains and JD stabbing her with her own knife kind of had a nice feeling to it. It's the question as to like what her body still be there and would she even be a walker? We'll get into that later, but yeah, it was at least something, you know.
It was.
Yeah. The next thing I'd say, I love the daily routine that John and JD had because like they weren't really in a bad place to have to shelter up in. So I don't know. I kind of really liked it. I was just like, it was a nice place. I mean, it's like they had coffee, they had booze, they had the board games, they had electricity, they had music. I mean, it's kind of like out of all the places that besides the tower, obviously.
Until they realized that a serial killer did his bidding there.
Well, yeah, but
It's
I
true.
think still it's kind of like, you know, pick and choose where you're going to survive in the apocalypse. And in an atomic blast, I was like, I could probably be fine with that.
And I'll throw in part of that establishing a routine helps normalize that situation.
Yeah.
Because if you think that you're trapped in a bunker and can't go out, and you let that work on your head, then that's when the walls start closing in and you get cabin fever. But if you have your daily chores, which I assume they had some sort of pump the water, you know, make the coffee, run the generator to charge the batteries, that you could get into a routine and it would make the time pass more pleasurably, if you could even go that far. So, yeah, it was good to see that they had developed a routine until we dealt with our unexpected seismic activity, which I will complain about later.
Yeah, I was just looking at it as it was just nice because I was like, okay, out of everything that was going on, you know, so they could be, you know, out there having to deal with like, you know, the radiation, you know, it's like even like having Morgan and Grace having the sub, it was like, oh, we have protection, you know, we have something, you know, it's like, although they were running low on food. But I don't know, I just I felt completely fine with it because I think I'm such an introvert. I'm just like, I would have been fine with that. I'd be like, I don't need it. Like, I could have just been there by myself probably and been fine with it.
Yeah, and if you think about it, that their situation in the bunker is probably the most livable because even though on the sub they have a lot of the same amenities, they're wanting to get out. They have this driver that they want to go out and check and do and look for people and stuff. And I think June and John Sr. had pretty well decided that they were just going to have to hunker down and bunker up and ride it out. So once they had established that, well, we're not going out, that we're just going to ride this as long as we can, I think that they were probably in a better place, again, until they figured out that they were staying in a serial killer's lair.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. And like, obviously, it's like that's what we kind of got parts of that. But it's like, but then there was my other awesome sauce, though, was because of I just felt like June, like just having kind of a more level like reality of the situation head on her shoulders. And it's like I completely agreed with her. It's like she was like had said, she's like, why venture out when it's like the world can kill you in 10 different ways, you know? And then, you know, she was trying to tell John Dory like, hey, like, you know, it's like like, you know, Teddy's dead. It's like he can't hurt anybody anymore. So it's kind of like, you know, like that shouldn't matter anymore. So I don't know. I liked her being kind of in a little bit in the same like what Grace was in last episode, where it's just like she kind of started putting in, or at least trying to put up the front of like, hey, you know, I'm going to try to be your more like level-headed like guide to the things that might matter than what you're thinking that matters at this moment. And I get the whole Teddy kill room being next door, but I don't know. I still feel like it's like they could have searched it for supplies. They could have used it as just more storage to clear out and make more room in where they're living. Like to me, that didn't really bother me. And so I kind of was like, I get it, but you know, it's like they were worried about like, oh, there's the earthquakes or whatever, like coming down on them, like causing issues. But I'm sure there was more 2x4s in there that they could have like built up more, you know, like stuff to like keep the roof from crumbling in and stuff like that. So I don't know. I like that she was the one though, being like, hey, it's like, and her wanting to stay and be like, I want to wait this out. You know, it's like, let's do what's smart. Let's not go out there, because in the end, John Dory kind of made some stupid things because of what he was going through and could have killed them both.
Yep.
And then it wouldn't have helped
think
anybody.
about this, Kyle, and this is just to agree with you. Think about what June's character has done up until now. June is probably the most resilient, and even though she, you know, lied several times about who she has gone into a bad situation and settled herself and sort of, you know, established some sense of normalcy as much as she could wherever she landed.
Yeah.
So that's to me, that just sort of is a character trait of her, the way she is. So absolutely, when you put her in this situation, she would have said, okay, we've got to make the best of this situation. And she would have set her mind to doing just that.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you that she's a true survivor.
I had a completely different take on it, but I'll wait till my turn.
Okay.
Yeah, you make a good point, you know, of what she's been through, but I mean, that's kind of one of the things that like, that's where I feel in the show, or like just that concept of like, I can see her as being like, she's kind of a true survivor. Like she knows how to adapt. She knows how to, you know, or she's been able to, or being forced to, like, I have to like rationalize things I'm doing or whatever for my survival so that I can keep going, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, lying and then like doing whatever she has to. But that can also turn around to where it's like, okay, but then that can also turn into being a bad thing where it's like, well, then, you know, would she make that decision of being like, okay, my survival is more important than somebody that I feel like I know, or even like John Dory Sr. She could have been like, my survival is more important, even though you're my ex-husband's father, you know, like dad. It's like, I could kill you, like, I have no problems with it. Like, I feel like that those are the two crosses. That's like, you can be a survivor and make these tough decisions, and then also be a survivor that makes like the wrong decisions, or like, you know, like, are not, you know, the friend of, you know, the people that you say you care about. So she could be a little like, with her being with Strand now, I think she would totally stay with Strand and be completely fine with it. But anyways, we'll go on with that. So Brian, do you have anything you want to jump in?
Yeah, I completely disagree with everything you said, pretty much. She's a liar, and she's forcing JD to stay down below based on lies, and that she's just doing the same kind of crap that she did in season 4, where she is just like, you know, like just not revealing the truth. So, you know, like in the end, when he confronts her and, you know, asks when, you know, how do you know? And, you know, she has to admit she made it all up. So to me, I disagree. I liked the fact that both of them were basically in denial, that both of them were dealing with the situation and in different ways. But essentially what she was doing was, she was forcing JD to be stuck down there based on some false assumptions that, like he took for truth, but they were based on bullshit. And I'm being overly harsh to her right now when I'm talking about it, but on the second watch, I had this like kind of like you're just doing it again. And if you think about it, it's like you said, of course she picks to go with Strand. She's done this before. She did it with the was it the Vultures? Is that their name?
Yep.
Yeah. So she, you did say she was a survivor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's she's going to go with Strand because that's her best chance to survive. So, was JD kind of out of his mind in this episode? Yeah, he was. Was he in the right for, going out there? No, definitely not. But does what June was doing make it okay? No, in my take. I think that I'm going to be harsh on her and say, she should have been more upfront with him and been straight with him and not made a whole bunch of shit up.
No, you make a good point. Yeah, she should have been upfront and like talking, like filling him in on what her thoughts, and they could have a marriage counseling like moment where they're like, hey, let's open like talk about our feelings. But yeah, she was hiding it all. I get that. She
was staying down there in the bunker because she did not want to deal with the fact that JD Jr. was gone. She didn't want to deal with reality, and her, establishing this routine and all this stuff was a way for her to avoid dealing with mourning. Right. That's kind of my take on it. So, yeah.
Oh, good point.
So yeah, I had something to say. What else did there was actually, I thought in theory, although you could, whether it's good or not, but in theory, the tone of the episode and certainly parts of the episode, it was a good Halloween episode to have. Because it was spooky and had a horror theme and, had a serial killer and, people being embalmed that were alive and, stuff like that. So I think as far as it being the right episode to have for Halloween, I think it was a good one to put on. Yeah. So, but the other two things that I've got down, I basically have already talked about. So, but yeah, that's my take. So
no, I mean, good point. I mean, yeah, I can't totally disagree. I guess I was just like looking at it from a different or looking at it, and I guess in my view,
no,
like how I would have.
Let me put it to you this. Let me put it to you this way. I'm saying I disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, but I want to bring up some other points. Like this is like me in debating class.
No, and I'm not if I said was wording it wrong, I'm not saying like that at all. It's like those points do. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe I was just being a little kind of coming from a different angle and saying, oh no, this is the way it was. But it is. She's in the morning, and also I don't think she really trusts JD Senior that much either, and
well, and it's not good that he was also lying. I mean, not lying, but not being upfront about
like the
being,
drinking.
and that he was, I don't know, somehow sneaking into the booze, and where that booze was coming from, I don't know, but he was obviously drinking more than,
Then their one little
Yeah.
routine cup.
yeah,
Yeah.
where that was coming, I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Probably the shelf full of bottles that fell over.
Yeah, but you would think she would have noticed, unless he was doing that famous trick of, like, putting water in the bottle, and
Well, there were a lot of bottles.
I guess.
yeah. I
Well-
don't know.
I don't know, Brian. I'm going to disagree with you disagreeing with Kyle. I don't really have a problem with the fact that she lied to stay in the bunker, only because if you consider the situation, what are you going to escape into?
Yeah, I don't either.
More fallout, more radioactive wasteland in sepia tone, more unnatural Texas fog. I just think that whatever her motivations were, I think the prudent plan was to just stay down there until you get to the point where you're running a little lower on supplies and then bug out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Give it some time.
Yeah.
And whether she was, lying to herself, dealing with the fact that John Jr. was gone, or whatever her motivations were, I think that was still, if you're not being completely honest, but yet you're following what is the best plan for the situation, is that so bad? I mean,
Maybe there's a position in government for you.
well, it's quite possible. I would say that, government and being a parent is often based on little white lies now and again.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I'm just saying that.
Well, we also know that we do know, as she did have, like, she was making those suits. Like, she was talking about an airlock. She was coming up with, like, oh, we need these things to be able to, like,
Get
venture
out.
for it. So, right. So she wasn't really just being like, I mean, at the end, she did say, she's like, I don't want to go out there. We should be staying here. But, it's like, she was still thinking ahead, or at least, like, from what she said, that there was kind of some movement of, like, what a future move would be, but
Right.
she wasn't ready to do it. And then, of course, we have the JD Senior's, deal going on, which he basically, we'll get into that. So I don't know. I think both sides. It's like she was being very, like, closed and, like, on her side. Like, they had all that time to, like, 70 days. What was it that, they could have been having a heart to heart and coming up with a plan, and it seemed like they both were kind of just doing kind of solo stuff. And
Right. Well, and two, you are talking about two characters who, as we have established, sort of had this veneer of civility under a core of lies.
mm-hmm.
So, maybe that's how they coexisted, because they weren't, neither one of them was dealing with things. And
Yeah.
it just so happens that they happened to be in ground central from where John Sr.'s ghosts came from, both, figuratively and literally, because, as we had established, that case with Teddy consumed him,
Yeah.
and it destroyed his relationship with his wife and John Jr. And so this was sort of the last brick in the wall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I think he had to.
Or the last board in the habitat, or however you want to do that. But,
And I think, in a lot of ways, he had to find her, so, like, to move on. And thankfully, he did find her, so
right.
he can move on. So he's not haunted by that anymore, so.
Yep.
Yeah, just what an inconvenient time for that to all happen, though. Like,
And he did, and he can say that he did keep his promise.
Right.
So
All right, well, guys, let's go into our weak sauce.
You're worthless and weak.
All right, well, we have our first weak sauce comes from Glennis from Toronto, and she said, I would have thought Dakota would have disintegrated into ashes, a little like the snap in Avengers Endgame. Is that a spoiler? I think that movie's been out long enough.
Or Sarah Connor's dream in the Terminator movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I put that in mine. No, yeah, it's like a little unrealistic that she'd be a corpse still for John Dory Sr. to even kill. Not that I have a real nuclear event to compare it to, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And I put the pictures in our doc or whatever, but yeah, it's like they, at the beginning of the season, of this season, they do show the flashback, and the flash happens, and Dakota's body's like turned into like this like charred remain. But then, yeah, LT, I brought up, it's like, oh, yeah, it's like we do have at least a nuclear reference from movies, and that would have been Terminator 2 when Sarah Connor exploded after the shockwave hit her in the dream. And I was looking at that shot from where Dakota turned into basically the charred remains. So, like, we do see the shockwave coming towards her. So, yeah, it's like there shouldn't have been a body. And even then, it's like the virus that causes The Walking Dead is like it's in their brain, and it takes over the brain. But if you destroy the brain, it's like that ends it. It's like there's no way that's not going to be enough head trauma that's going to break that connection. And anyways,
well, I'd even argue that she wouldn't still be that close to where she fell.
Or yeah,
I think she would have blown. She would have been, down the road a ways.
Yeah. So, it was there to, I guess, give people that wanted to see her be stabbed again. So,
yeah. So, Aaron from the internet says, John Dory, again, at a point I was done with him and his drama. And she says, of course, the fact they had enough food to last for a year.
Yeah. They had lots of food. They would have been fine down there for a while.
They had lots of food.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's not unbelievable because Teddy was planning to wait things out there, right? So he would have stocked things up for at least a year, I would think. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he didn't expect for the earthquake, which I'm still a little sketch about the earthquake, but earthquakes, I guess. But
yeah. Well,
it was rusty.
All right, thank you guys for your weak sauce. So let's go into ours. I mean, we were just kind of talking about a little bit about like JD Senior. But I mean, that to me, that's kind of was part of what I didn't really like about this episode, and it was just, I mean, I get it was like part of his story, and dealing with the fact that, he found Teddy's lair of terror just right next door of where they were, hanging out at. But I just felt it a little weak because it was like he was like driven so much to be like, oh, I have to go find her body. And it's like caused him to risk limb and limb and even risk June's life to go on this mission. And, it's like, I was saying like June was like kind of the one being a little more level reality, like headed person, because it was like he was dead and he couldn't harm anybody anymore. And I was scratching my head at the reaction just because the fact that it was like, you guys are just trying to survive from a nuclear explosion. You're in a place that has like pretty much enough that you need to be able to wait it out. And I get that he was like suffering from, I guess, PTSD or the withdrawals or the regret or all that stuff. So it was like that, basically we were seeing, it's like the ghosts of his past were, like coming up and like, causing him to, lose kind of like control of, a rational thought. So like that was the only thing I didn't really quite like, because it was just kind of like, I don't know, like I think to me, I've always thought that it's like if, yes, we've seen where people are faced with like these very like, you think like if you were faced with the zombie apocalypse, how would you react? I think in the beginning, all of us would be like, oh my gosh, you're either running for the hills or you go try to find your loved ones. You do whatever you're trying to survive, but you're also like, oh my gosh, like there's a zombie. I don't know what to do with this thing. And like, there's people running down the street, it's like society's falling apart. And then you're like having to deal with that to being like, you're like, how far are we into this? Like 10 years, 7 years, something like that. Like that you've been living this life of survival for so long that I don't understand that why wouldn't you have already rationalized some stuff where you're like him having these ghosts or whatever, like where would it not have come in to be like, oh yeah, that's not smart to go out there when there's radiation and like I'm going to open a door and leave it open and have these plastic suits that I don't even know if they even work. I don't know. To me, I'm like, I lose the part of like, I don't really see that as being like, that's what would it like that someone would react that way after this long. Like,
well, yeah, but he's been chasing that ghost for 30 years. So, 10 years of a zombie apocalypse is just, falling off a bridge or falling off a log or whatever you want to say. That he's been haunted by this Teddy thing for much, much longer.
I get that.
And as a good friend of mine often says, you can't use logic on crazy people.
Well, yeah.
Right. And just given the state of the show, you can't put logic on fear motivations.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was my part of like the week, because it's not like I'm expecting that, we get this stuff like in The Walking Dead too, where it's just like, oh, that doesn't quite make sense, but it's like, okay, well, it's part of the story, or or it's like, oh, we need this character to do this so that we can like whatever, it's like we've seen Carol be a badass, but then she's done some stupid stuff that seemed very out of character to what we know of her from being from the beginning. It's just like, it is just because it fits the story. So I don't know. And
she'll go from badass Carol to emotional wreck Carol to badass Carol to emotional wreck Carol.
Yeah.
I can't believe I killed those 100 people. I saved the entire town. I can't believe I saved the entire town by killing 100 people. Back and forth.
Yep. Yeah.
I killed all those cannibals. Oh my God, I killed all those cannibals.
Oh, yeah.
I killed Lizzie.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, that's all I really had. It was just, I just remember sitting there when the episode was on and I was kind of like, why? Like, just, you're in a good place. Like, just stay. You don't need to go out there and go try to find someone to bury after like society and everything's ended and there's like no laws and he's dead. I was kind of like, it's over. Like, I wouldn't want to go. Anyways, that was me.
I don't think you can dispute that too much. The main thing that I disagreed with was just, June not being straight with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if she had been honest with him, I think he would have accepted it, although you could tell he was pretty antsy to get up there. But, largely I agree with you. But, like, one of the things that he did, quite honestly, wasn't cool. He left June when she was pinned. I mean, considering how things were down there, I mean, he could have been leaving her to die. And to me, that wasn't cool. So, I have to definitely give not so much a weak sauce, but like a you infuriate me sauce. But one thing that you could definitely say, well, the next two are weak. The alcoholism, it seemed to come out of nowhere. I mean, all of a sudden he's shaking. It's like, well, how'd that suddenly become a thing? I didn't know that he was an alcoholic. There was no real like hint at it until he just, it became a plot point. So So it was that. And I have some stuff like this in my what sauce, but I'm putting this one in my weak sauce. Why didn't those idiots identify themselves? Like, it's such a trope. These bad people, or, maybe they're not even bad people. They didn't identify themselves. They didn't say who they were, Instead, they just like showed up and, until Strand said, I'm still trying to figure out who they were. I thought they were his guys,
Yep.
So
maybe they're the stragglers of the pioneers.
Maybe, but still, like, I don't get it. Like, why are they doing that? Why not just identify themselves?
Well, and that also, because I mean, we do know, because it's been in the fan wiki and stuff like that there's these people called the stalkers. And so, it's like, okay, is it?
Well, I don't know that.
Well, no, right. We don't know. It's just like, oh, here's these people, and they're, it's like we've already seen Strand's Rangers wearing the same gear. So, and we just saw an episode with those same people, like kind of similar. It was like, it wasn't clear that it was like, oh, that's who they are. There's just these other random people. I'd
say the bad guys stuff seems more mix and match than Strand's people. Strand's people seem to be a little bit more uniform to my eye.
Or maybe I just
and for that matter, I don't see any. There wouldn't be any purpose in Strand's people not identifying themselves,
Right.
So anyway, I guess we'll find out, but it is kind of strange. That's all I've got.
Yep.
All right, LT.
Well, I put it in weak sauce because I just thought it belonged here. I guess that when I first started looking at the bunker, I guess, Teddy bought the Cult Leader's Handbook for Beginners, since it seemed that the bunker was a buried school bus. And it just seems that's a stock thing for crazy cult leaders to do, because that's what they did in Waco, Texas, that their underground bunker were buried school buses. And there seems to be some other show that I saw with a serial killer that their underground lair was an old school bus.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And the next question I had is, so why suddenly did fairly tectonically stable Texas turn into all San Andreas fault 50 days after the nuke blast? Why is it suddenly now the roof is getting shaky? And it seems like to me that if the roof was unstable and it was going to collapse, it would have done it when the freaking bomb went off.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that, 3 mooks on the roof digging with shovels is going to cause that much instability. So that was the part that I was kind of going, really? After all this time, now we're going to start having problems with the roof? And just to sort of concur with Brian, so who are these guys? I think that it's, a function of the plot that we've got to have the unknown menace other than zombies. Because how many times in Fear have the real bad guys been other humans with bad intentions more so than the zombies? Something else I noticed, and maybe it was just me, but quick. So how many shots did J.D. Sr. shoot out of that 6-shot revolver when he was shooting the bad guys? More than 6, I think.
I think you're right.
I think I counted maybe 8, and he only had 1 pistol, and I didn't see him reload. So I was going, well, if they want to make it like a Western, they're doing a good job. So the same question I had last week. So back at the tower, if Strand has all of these walkers outside acting as his, zombie barrier, so how did the Strand Mandos get out to be picking people up?
Trampoline. They jump over the wall.
Yeah, I'm going, maybe they've got a zip line.
Yeah.
I just can't figure out if this is their big defense. Do they have a tunnel? If they've got a tunnel, then I hope they have somebody guarding it, because every time there's a tunnel in this show, somebody sneaks through it.
Through it, yeah. Yeah.
And then the last thing was, after we see Morgan digging bravely, trying to figure out if they were still in the bunker, I'm going to complain about the radio conversations and what sauce, but the only question I had, so where did Morgan park the Apocalypinto? Because you saw him wander off into the fog, and I'm going, well, he must have parked the Pinto around the corner. How did Morgan, and like I said, Morgan heard him on the radio, but how did he find him? Because he didn't know where this bunker was.
Yeah, and they never really said anything about, like, where they were. They were just trying to reach out to people. So
they kind of did. I mean, he was trying to. He wasn't very specific, but he did kind of. I think he might have said what road they were on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and listen for it, but I know he did say that he didn't think that they were far off of the coast of Galveston and yada yada.
Or yeah, John Dory Sr. did say that, but I don't think he went further than that.
I don't think he was that specific, and unless
a few clicks off the Galveston coast, I think is all he said.
And unless somebody had some radio direction finding equipment, it's still going to be kind of hard to find them.
Yeah, unless there was something that was said, previous seasons that we just don't remember. But he found them. Maybe the Pinto diesel has like a little like radio signal.
Yeah, he took some of the radio equipment out of the submarine. So
yeah.
All right, that's all I got, man.
Cool deal. All right, well, let's go into our what sauce.
What?
And our first listener what sauce comes from Dieta from Detroit, and she says, John Dory Sr. suffering from alcohol withdrawals, seeing and talking to dead people, hallucinating about one of the women whose body he never found, Cindy Hawkins. A good Halloween episode, Cindy's ghost taunts Dory Sr., you promised to find me. She talks him into leaving the bunker and abandoning June, almost getting them both killed. Yep.
Yep. So, Renee from Atlanta says, where should I begin? I roll. It's so much to freaking choose from, so I will just start from the beginning. June and JD Sr. underground acting like they play on the Waltons. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Paul. Facepalm, facepalm. While all hell is broken loose up top.
That's funny.
Okay, so JD is supposedly an alcoholic and is having withdrawals all of a sudden, hands shaking and everything. Eye rolls. Where, pray tell, did he get all this alcohol during a zombie apocalypse to sustain his habit? I'm guessing the same place Strand, no good ass, got all of his.
He had to go to Bill's.
Right, because Bill's is the best equipped shop in the apocalypse.
You said it last week.
So, he really was going to leave June because the ghost of a dead woman was talking to him, and they just happened to stumble upon her body when he went back to help June by removing the boards off of June, the body of Cindy Lou, who just happened upon them. Facepalm, facepalm, facepalm. Give me a freaking break. She goes on to say, okay, so the crazy folks were out there just waiting until they pop up from their underground hideout. How did they know they were there? Oh, they heard him on the same way Morgan and Strand heard them, the walkie-talkie. I can't with Fear the Walking Dead. She's got several laughing faces. Really, I can think of some more suspensions of disbelief things, but I digress.
Oh, thank you, Renee, though. We definitely want to hear your reaction, because there were some... Yeah, I mean, there's all these good questions of like, okay, well, where did these crazy people come from? All of a sudden, JD was an alcoholic, but then it's like, where did all this alcohol come from? Because we don't see that, It's like if they showed him sneaking a bottle from like underneath his bed that he was hiding like a whole case, like that would have kind of made more sense, but oh well. All right, Erin from the internet is the last, and she said, wait, didn't they show embalming didn't stop the virus? So shouldn't the waitress have been a zombie when they found her instead of just a dead body?
And I would say no, only because that was the recently deceased. That Cindy has been dead for some time pre-virus, so she was just dead. That the people we saw that were embalmed are recently deceased.
Yep, and we have no idea of when all this virus stuff even happened or when. Yep. So it could have been that week before it started to, whatever, but yeah, good point.
Yep.
All right, thank you, listeners, for your what sauce. So let's go into ours. I didn't really have any because I kind of put it all in my weak sauce. So Brian, you want
to? LT, can you, if you got anything?
Oh, I can. My what sauce is pretty typical fare for Fear the Walking Dead. Radios. Once again with the walkie-talkies. So why do you feel the need to go into aimlessly broadcasting out into the ether and, expositioning yourself to a fare thee well out into the void when we as the viewers know that every time you talk on the radio and you're not talking to someone, if you're just talking out into the air, bad things happen. Other than the fact that we're using this as an expositional device to give the viewers more information. Of course, we don't know what kind of antenna JD Sr. had on the radio in the bunker, but given the fact we were just talking about why was Dakota still laying there, if they had an external antenna, it probably would have been blown away.
Blown away. Yep.
So again, radios. And of course, my last diatribe about the bunker is this is just another case of this is why we can't have nice things. Anytime we have somewhere that's fairly safe, anytime we have something that's well stocked and provisioned and fairly protected, we can't stay there.
Somebody's got to mess it up. Either we mess it up or they mess it up.
Yep.
Yep. just like that they left the prison, they've left all these other places on the main show that they could have just gone back to.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we left. And so aside from the fact that they had to push them out with some, earthquake type things, John and June had a nice bunker. It was safe and full of food, and of course, they can't stay. So,
yep. They had to get to Strand, or Strand had to get them. That was the whole plot. But then again...
And that's the thing. I'm just waiting because Strand's got a nice place, and we know that it can't last because we can't have nice things in the apocalypse.
Yep.
I was under the impression, though, that that whole bunker collapsed upon itself. But I was wondering about it because it appeared that there were two entrances to get in there because those other people were trying to get in the other way. Like JD Sr. got in and out from one side, and they were trying to get in and out from the other side. Is that a true statement? Yeah.
That's a true statement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which that could have been the ventilator shaft. It could have been, as anyone would know, that if you're going to build a hole in the ground, it's nice to have a second exit.
Yeah.
And so
an exit that, I'm sure Teddy was using, when you're building something like that, you have like your loading exit or entrance that you can load stuff in easily, and then you would then want to destroy it so that it would cut it off after you're done. But they had the entrance that was walking up above them to the deal. So it's kind of like,
well, as I said, it is the Teddy Maddox School of Embalming.
It's true. But the like I said, the only thing about that would be, so we know that it was 10 feet underground, however many feet, based on the culvert that they had to crawl up the manhole.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like the other exit was a little shallower in my estimation, but we don't know because we don't know.
All right, Brian, you want to take the rest?
Well, I mean, it's been said another way, but I don't even know if I need to say this because we already said it. So I'd say I don't have anything.
All right, well, then let's move on to our sad and aw sauce.
Aww.
And we get one from, actually the one and only from Renee, from Atlanta, and she says, the whole darn season so far, I'm just not happy with the direction the show has been headed. It's like, what is the reason behind this mess? Facepalm, facepalm. Well, I hope we are going to get to where they're headed, but again, we just know that, like we said before, it's like, I think there's been some COVID issues. There was like, I'm sure they had to change some things up. So hopefully, I mean, I agree. I'm kind of waiting for it to kind of get to the stuff that, I feel like was what we should be seeing at this point. But thank you, Renee. That was all our listeners, sad and awesome. So I'll just go into mine. It wasn't really much, but it was just, it was John Dory Sr. telling June that he was like sorry that he's not the Dory that she should be with. It was just kind of sad that it's just like, yes, like she and John Dory, if he was still there, if they were in this situation, they would be probably like living it up and like being fine. Although they were playing the game of life, but wasn't John Dory like he played Scrabble or like he made the Scrabble? Like It's kind of like, but we didn't get to see any.
Yes, he had Scrabble.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting to see that pop up, but I guess when it's all you got, you play with whatever you have. All right, Brian, what did you have?
Just finding the body. I thought that was sad. That's just nothing more than that. Not that it was sad.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, LT.
Well, my sad and alls, I was going to say I was having a few feels for JD Sr. just because of the anguish he had about the case, and when he found the newspaper clippings that Teddy had kept, and knowing how much of his life he had devoted trying to find Teddy and put Teddy away, and then at least he was able to find the body. And I will say this, whatever feels that I had for that whole situation were kind of moderated because they did milk that cow awfully hard this episode.
They sure did.
So if they hadn't, I don't think if they'd hit it a little less hard, I would have probably gone up on my rating some, and probably not has been nearly as critical of some of the things they did. But yeah, they kept going back to the well on that one, and they ruined the emotional moment for me mostly.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing where it's like, this story could have been done differently and much more successful. But instead, I feel like it's like they have just done things that were just like really easy, convenient, and just like to the point where like they're just like, oh, we're just going to do this. We'll have him walk around and then we can do a close up of his face with the mask, whatever. Like, it's almost kind of like, I got that same kind of feeling that you did when you saw the newspaper clippings. And it was kind of like, gosh, you could have done some little flashback or something that like of him before dealing with these, pre like something that was on a case or something, and he was like doing something, like to give more of a connection of like, oh, okay, like this is him going back to chasing Teddy and this whole struggle that he's been having, to then go into where it's like, okay, now I understand why he's now freaking out, or that this is affecting him so much.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is it's kind of the whole thing of you're trying to put 5 pounds of plot in a 2-pound plot sack. That I think if they would have had a fewer things going on in the episode, then the deal with John's impending alcoholism and freaking out over the stuff they found in the cave would have been more effective had they not had all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, I agree. They could have, earthquakes aside, it's like that could have been the whole stress thing, not the people outside, like like the hidden stuff, noises, sounds, like whatever. It's like knowing that they're underground and being like, oh, our impending doom could be because everything's going to cave in on us. But instead it was like, oh, here's some random unknowns that are like chasing after, it's like,
like I said, just a little too many things going on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Would have made all the difference. All right. Well, if that's all we had for our sad sauce, let's get into our feedback.
We can talk about it. Done talking. Time to listen.
All right. We actually got some written feedback, but we also got from Renee, but we also got a voicemail that came in earlier today. So let's go ahead and start with that.
Hi, guys. This is Renee calling from Atlanta, calling about Fear the Walking Dead podcast, I guess, and / The World Beyond. I just wanted to say, Kyle, you said that, I listened to you guys today in the gym, and Kyle, you said that last week was the worst episode to you. This week, to me, the John Dory episode, Cindy Hawkins, Cindy Lou Who, or whatever, can't even think of her name. This was the worst episode ever to me. Like, I don't understand the point behind these episodes. I mean, why are we dealing with these different people? Why? It makes no sense. Why can't we? The Strand storyline to me is good. Well, just deal with Strand. This is ridiculous. I mean, I just don't like it. I just want them to get to Alicia, get to the rest of the team. Morgan and Strand standoff, to me, that's going to be good. So why are we dealing with the bounty hunter's twin brother, the other people that's outside? I don't know what they're doing, and I don't know. And Brian, I know the podcast you're talking about because normally I listen to them also while I'm at the gym, and I normally leave a feedback for Fear, but I haven't been leaving one because, for one, I don't watch Fear really to the next day because I'm not liking them, the episodes. And they're so hard on Fear, but they're really not covering Fear now. They're covering The World Beyond, and The World Beyond is definitely getting out of hand. I'm not happy with it. But Brian, to answer your question, I have seen The Strain, and it was so good. I really enjoyed that. But I haven't watched Fallen Sky or The Last Ship, but I'm getting ready to Google them now and, check them out. Thanks for letting me know about them. And, I'm not happy with the Fear the Walking Dead, and I try not to bash them because it's a part of the Walking Dead franchise, and I like that you all really don't bash them, but, we have to be honest, and to me, I have not been happy since it came back on. All the episodes to me have not been good, whereas they could have been. They really could have been really good to me. The plot line where they headed with Fran and Morgan, which I'm like, Deetta and the rest of the gang, by the way, Deetta, you did an awesome job last week when you called in. But, yeah, I don't know why all of a sudden Fran hates Morgan. I don't get that. But still, I think that is a good storyline. I think they should just, deal with that. But this other crap, I'm not happy with. I just don't like it. So, yeah, just wanted to call in. Okay, talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you, Renee. Again, always love the voicemail. So thank you for getting that in, and we were able to get it before the deadline.
Thank you so much, Renee.
No, when we were just talking about this, I was like, I totally can agree. Like, it was like, there is a time when there's just like too much stuff going on and it starts interfering with like the main story, because I think the Strand and, Morgan face off, which we know is coming, it's kind of like,
it's in the posters.
Well, right. And it's like, but it's like, then they're adding this bounty hunter, twin brother. And then they're adding these, the unknowns, whoever these people are.
I don't think the bounty hunter story will last more than one episode.
Nope.
No, I don't think so either. But it's like, it is again, like, it's like this other thing that's like, okay, but what does this, unless the bounty hunter is joining up with Morgan or with, Strand, it's kind of like, it's just like,
why?
Right. It's just, it's muddying the waters of like the rest of the story, like the story.
They're bringing him in because he was interesting last season. So let's have him in again. Let's bring in his long lost twin brother.
Well, you know who we need? We need the long lost twin sister of Dirty Woman.
No, we need Aunt Mladison or something.
I said it last week, it's getting to be like a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all we need now is, but wait, Victor, I can't fight you because secretly you're my son. Dun, 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 dun. It's just getting way too Days of Our Lives up in here.
Yeah, that they it is like it. They're making it like and they even said it's like the Walking Dead Western, and it's kind of like,
and it's like we got the Walking Dead Western, we got the Walking Dead 90210.
Yep.
Or I was thinking about that this week, and calling it 90210 is maybe not true anymore. It's like ABC Family, or what do they call that channel now? Was it Life? Not Lifeform.
Oh,
Freeform.
no. Freeform. That's right.
Yes. So it's like a freeform.
The Walking Dead Freeform.
Yeah.
Well, as long as they don't end up like a Lifetime movie, we'll be okay.
Everything is a romantic comedy.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
If it ended up like John and June, and they ended up happily ever after, I could deal with that. But
yeah,
but
no one.
Nope.
There's no happy endings.
No, not in the zombie apocalypse.
Nope. Oh, all right. Thank you, Renee, for your voicemail.
Well, I just, before you let that go, I just want to say, of the 3 shows I brought up last week, The Last Ship would be the first one I would suggest checking out, I think. I haven't seen all of that one, but what I've seen is really good. I have seen all of Falling Skies, and the first 3 seasons of that are really good, and I definitely recommend them. But the last 2 seasons are
not so much.
Yeah, they're pretty sketchy. So just keep that in mind. But there's good acting, and there's good visual effects, and yeah, I mean the acting on the shows, like Noah Wyle and Will Patton, and there's definitely some good people on that show. The Strain is what's his name, Guillermo del Toro. He came up with that show, so and he's definitely a name in horror. And that's like vampires with some zombie like characteristics, and that's interesting. Again, that's another show I didn't watch the entire run of, but it's good of what I saw of it, but it's also somewhat uneven. But I'd recommend that one as well.
Yeah. Last Ship, I haven't seen. I've only seen just little bits and pieces of it because I have it on. I have YouTube TV, and so I have it set to record, but it hasn't been re-aired on any of the stations.
It's probably.
I think it's on Hulu streaming.
I imagine it's probably on HBO Max because it was a TNT show.
I checked. It's not actually.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Yeah. Hulu has all 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the ABC shows and the AMC shows end up on Hulu.
Yeah, but this was a TNT show.
Right. But they've had it on Hulu.
Yeah. Well, and it's possible, like they may end up on HBO Max once the contract ends up, much like how the Star Treks are retreating and eventually all coming back to Paramount Plus. So they now there's only one Star Trek property that's not on Paramount Plus, and that's Star Trek: The 2009 Picture. Everything else is on Paramount Plus, so that will soon be on Paramount Plus, I imagine.
Yeah.
And just a side note, how many seasons of Last Ship were there?
I think 5.
5. I know that I saw up until the 4th season, and I don't think I caught the last season. So,
yeah, I saw the first season, but then maybe an episode of the second, and then it was like, it fell off, and I was like, oh, I'll get to it eventually, whatever.
Yes, 5 seasons.
Yeah.
56 total episodes.
And I thought it was an interesting series.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that the show, like I said, I didn't get to see all of it, but I think I saw the first 3 seasons, and it was just this is one of those things. This happens to me a lot. This has happened to me a lot since I started podcasting. The 4th season was on right during our first season, Kyle and I, of covering Fear together, and also the first season of us covering Discovery. So I just couldn't, I couldn't, between that and Discovery, Walking Dead, and Fear, I couldn't get to it, I fell off of it. And then once you fall off of it and it falls off your DVR, it's like, I have to buy the episodes. And it's like, and at the time, I don't think they were available on demand for some reason. So
I think you're correct.
Yeah.
So
yep, same thing. It's like I had to have it set to record, and YouTube TV will record it no matter where it shows up. It's just if it's on YouTube TV on one of the channels. But it's like I've got season 5, but since I haven't seen all of season 2, I'm like, I'll wait until maybe they re-air it again, or it's on Hulu. Falling Skies is on HBO Max, but I don't know if that's being aired anywhere else. So still good things to check out. All right, Renee gave some written feedback, but it was basically the same of what you said in your voicemail, Renee. So I was just gonna pass over that and just go into the next one. And our next feedback comes from Dieta from Detroit. LT, you want to take this?
I shall. Dieta says, okay, wasn't Dory Sr. broadcasting on the radio? I don't recall him calling for help. Thought he was just looking for survivors. Strand and Morgan both claimed to have heard their call for help, but I don't recall anyone calling for help. So who called for help after the bunker caved in? Dory Sr. killed all the intruders. Strand's people, we later find out, were the ones digging their way in. Or did we? The whole bunker cave-in is questionable to me because the bunker didn't start crumbling until Strand's people started trying to dig their way in. So now it's unstable? They find Cindy's body in the walls of the bunker. Now June is ready to leave. I would too, not trying to be stuck underground with a dead, rotten corpse. She makes a couple of sick face emojis. Never mind, they were almost buried alive. So are we to assume that Cindy wasn't a walker was because she was buried long before the apocalypse? I know it wasn't because she was embalmed, because we already saw the funeral home walkers. Just wondering. Chin scratch. Still not believing Strand has been able to create a thriving community in under 100 days, while Morgan has hung out in the submarine building the supernova radioactive resistant car. June and Dory Sr. rescued by Strand. He is definitely entertaining walking around in that silly military uniform. What a joke. She has eye rolls and laughing faces. He wants Dory Sr. to help him find Alicia. Dory Sr. doesn't want to help Strand do anything and wants to leave, but June says, and go, where and how they're going to get out with the walkers surrounding the building. Hello, June. The same way Strand brought y'all in. Were you unconscious as well? And why is June so quick to stay under Strand's reign? Did she forget that Strand helped cover up Dakota's killing of Virginia's deputy, which led her to believe it was okay to kill someone who gets in her way, resulting in her killing your husband, John? I'm sorry, June, ain't no way I would be okay with Strand, especially after what he did to Morgan on the submarine. He ain't to be trusted, no way, no how. Thank you for the rescue, but we will be on our way and take our chances in the radioactive world. June has become a wuss. You can't live life being afraid of dying. Strand and Morgan on the walkies talking smack was hilarious. Not sure why the storyline is pitting them against one another, but this isn't going to end well. Only one will remain standing. Who will it be? I'm starting to feel like Aaron from the internet, Morgan. Morgan, I have had my fill of Morgan and his flip-flop philosophies and find himself the main focus of Fear the Walking Dead. I'm over it and I'm over him.
It seems like as we go further along in this season, Aaron is getting more supporters.
yes. But I can't not agree because I think Morgan.
I just wanted Aaron to to feel it. It's like everyone's coming around to your opinion.
No, they're not.
Oh.
They need to bring Madison back and get rid of Morgan and Strand. Sorry, not sorry. Shrug, shrug. Overall, it's an okay episode.
Thank you, Dieta. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about some of these same points, and so it's good to hear it comes from someone else.
Yep.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. It's fear. All right. Well, Aaron from the internet is next. Do you want to take this one, Brian, or do you want to take Glynis?
Yeah, speaking of Aaron from the internet, she says, it's so nice they all found conveniently well-stocked places to hang out at. So non-dramatic for them. Imagine if they were in a drama series. I'm just saying, if this was still a show where Madison was the lead, at least half the people really would be facing food shortage, and we'd find out at least one, if not two characters died because they couldn't find safe places. I miss when you had to worry over who'd lose in the family. Now we know they're all good each season unless you're Alicia, who's plagued with basically no screen time. Frowny face. Didn't they do the whole Find Teddy's secret room scene where John and June said the exact same thing last season? Again, with the bringing of contaminants back into safe spaces. Not going to lie, at a point I was ready for Senior to die because he got annoying fast with his Teddy obsession still. It was one thing, as they said at the start, when he couldn't take living in the lair, but after he went up the first time, he was just annoying to me. Ugh. Of course, Morgan shows up. Sadly, now that he's back, I know he's going to monopolize screen time and he's inserted into things he realistically would be a part of. Strand to Morgan, you're such a bore. Agreed. Oh, look, everyone except Alicia is back next week. Yay.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah. We just have to get through. I think the end of this, we're going to have like this first half, and then we'll have the back half. I'm assuming after the Walking Dead finishes, but it's kind of a chore, but I'm still thinking that we're going to get Alicia finally. We're going to get everybody back together, not these like little like containment episodes, and it hopefully will get better. That's my hope.
Get in the car, move north, go to Tulsa.
As in Oklahoma, I would say screw Tulsa.
Well, I'm just saying north.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, thank you, Aaron. let's go. Our last feedback comes from Glenn is from Toronto, so I will go with this. And the routine June and John Sr. had in the bomb shelter reminded me of the routine John Dory had in his cabin with his waking regularly to his singing clockfish alarm. The curtain that June drew close every night mimicked her doing that in Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 5, Laura, and saying goodbye to each other. It's not quite the same when John Dory Sr. says that some ugly mustard and it's not too late. Both have a hollow ring to it and just miss John Dory Jr. in Fear the Walking Dead even more. He's the equivalent to what Rick Grimes is to The Walking Dead. Both shows can't really do without them. Yeah, goodness. John, it would have been a whole different episode. It was just John and June. Actually, they probably would have just, there wouldn't have been an episode. They would just have been living in the bunker, being all fine and playing Scrabble. She continues on. I think we had a sense of how much time has passed since they were holed up in that shelter and on what day they had the collapse first with the shelf where John Sr.'s stash of booze was destroyed and then when the collapse of the shelter itself. Both collapses reveal secrets with first up Teddy's death chamber and second up the actual body of Cindy Hawkins. So at least there was a sort of closure for John Dory Sr. with these events that disrupted their happy routine. Not a good place for John Dory Sr. to suffer the DTs and then try to differentiate between what was real and what's not, or not real. Extra precarious with walkers descending on him. So were those men the strippers? They need another name, I think. Yeah, oh yeah, because they were called that, stripping, I guess, clothes off the walkers. Then we saw that attack Strand and Will. They were digging into the shelter. Oh boy, June has a habit of joining the baddies with being part of the vultures before, the settlers, and now with the new dictator Strand. But this time she wasn't running away like before. In fact, she was the opposite, with falsely keeping John Sr. and herself in the shelter when they didn't need to be cooped up for so long. June will be useful to Strand with her medical knowledge just like she was with Virginia, but she should remember from experience that she'll need to watch her back when it comes to Strand. June should be way more worried, as even John Dory Sr. said, why should they stay when Strand tried to kill Morgan? How did Morgan track the radio message to get to the bomb shelter? Doesn't that need a pretty powerful detection system? Or maybe I answer my own question with them being on a sub, and I suppose John Sr. did the radio message every day, so they could triangulate it correctly from the sub. But still, how long can the subsystems run for? Is it on nuclear power then, or has a big-ass battery backup? I think aren't all subs nuclear?
No.
Well, American subs.
Well, yes, but the nuke just does propulsive power. I think that some of their generators were run on diesel.
Yeah, okay. That would make sense.
Yeah, because if you recall, he got diesel fuel from the sub.
Yep. No, yeah. But that's good because you think nuclear sub is like, oh, everything's nuclear. Like it's all generated from that. But yeah, that's good point. Why does Strand hate Morgan so much now? That just doesn't make sense. It was Strand that tried to kill Morgan, not the other way around. So Strand says to Morgan over the radio, bring it. So Morgan should say as a retort to Strand of, I'm right here. And you know what it is? Mantras that he loves to say so much before. Thank you, Glennis. Yeah, it's like with the, Strand, it's like for one, it's like, I think they are somewhat safe, as I don't think Strand is really going to kick them out or anything. Because we do know that, like, we don't know how many doctors he has or like medical people. And we know June's definitely, a very good medical, she has that background. She was doing that for Virginia. So I think that, at least in that regards, she's probably feeling pretty somewhat safe or like okay with where they're at right now. But it's like, I also was saying is like with his beef with Morgan, that I also feel like he kind of like he enjoys that. Like, so it's like a June and JD Sr. probably like he's probably fine with, but I think he enjoys the fact that if he has them on his side, then that's going to make, Morgan more pissed off, and I think he enjoys that. I think that's where I was like kind of going with it. It's like that's the thing that he seems to be like going for. Like he wants to sit there and kind of throw it into Morgan's face that he's like, oh look, I built a place and you didn't, you failed. So if he's got them on his side, or even like just even there, and they're playing, and they're even lying to him and he doesn't know it, it's just like he's going to use that against Morgan. And then it's also interesting that if John and June are there, then are they going to do something where it's like, oh, they're going to be working on the inside, and then Morgan somehow can like take advantage of that or whatever. So I don't know. We'll see what that plays off if they do that. Because like right now, I know like some, I guess, Glenn has kind of mentioned it. Some, people mentioned it. It's like where this is going, like where we see, like this is dragging on so long, and like what's the end game. But it's like I'm kind of at this point now where I'm like I'm getting a little bit on the same side as Aaron, where it's like I'm tired of like kind of Morgan, so I'm kind of fine with Morgan being on somewhat the losing side. Unless he finds Alicia or it's like one of any of the other people, because we obviously all group is all spread all over the place, but it's like I want to see either our other people come on to take on Strand, and it's just not just Morgan. You mean like, oh, like I'm gonna like somehow like mess up your deal or like whatever, and so it's like. Well, I feel like that's where we're going to lead to. It's like Alicia obviously has to come into the picture somewhere. But then that's the other part where it's like, I do feel like, at least this is kind of where I'm seeing. I feel like Alicia's going to be the one that's going to take out Strand. If it is coming to being Strand is going to die. Because I feel like that would be fitting for Strand, who's one of the OGs, to find his end at the hand of a Clark. Yeah, and if they don't do that, and it is Morgan, like then I think that's going to be a mistake, because I think we hear what our listeners are saying, and I think probably what's been kind of a general thought process of fear, that like unless Alicia's going out and ending, like not going to be with fear, that it's like I could not see anybody else but Alicia being the one that actually then takes Strand out. If it comes to that, I think that's what makes sense. That's what fits. And if it's Morgan, it's like that'll be a problem. So let's hope that they don't do that.
The only thing that I've got remaining that I haven't said is that Strand seems to be this season's Ginny in a lot of ways, like, building her society her way and discarding the people that he doesn't think are worthy. That's what it seems like he's doing. He's basically taking a page from Jenny's book.
And doing it on a much smaller scale, which is probably smart.
Well, yeah, not doing it in one building, basically.
Yeah.
So beyond that, that's all I have to say.
LT.
Well, the very last thing I was going to throw out, since a couple people mentioned it, that I don't think Cindy would have been a stinky corpse by now, just because it had happened so long ago and she was embalmed. However, I think they would still have smelled something, because no matter if you're embalmed, that doesn't prevent you from following the natural course of decay. And just again, professionally speaking, there's nothing in the world that smells like a dead person, and especially a dead person that's been dead for some time. And especially with such a small confined space, I think that they would have noticed. Again, just me. So
it's just you.
Well, that's true, Brian, because I could
more than just you.
But one of those, as one would say, one of the occupational hazard of my varied and storied past.
Oh, but I would agree. It's kind of... Anyways. Well, are you guys ready to move on to the kids show?
I am.
All
Please.
right. All right. Let's get into our World Beyond feedback. World Beyond Season 2, Episode 5, Carnivorous.
I just wanted to hear you say Quatervois.
Quatervois. Anyways.
Wow. Carnivorous.
Yes. I
think that's a different show,
yes,
Kyle.
I was hooked on phonics, but not that way. All right. Written by Ben Sokolowski, directed by Heather.
Wow, you got that right.
I know. I know, but now, wait, Capinello? Is that right? Heather Capinello? Capiello. Description: as a dangerous plan is put into motion, more revelations come into light. All right. I didn't get to really watch this a whole lot. So it's like I just had quick points. So it was like I was happy to see Silas with his friends. As you know, the girls reunited with Daddy, and then Jada showed her face with her garbage puffy lips that makes it easy to only want horrible things to happen to her. So I hope we get to see that. But she's in the movies, isn't she? Or supposedly.
Well, we don't know.
We don't know.
It's been, people have suggested that she is, but there's not been any proof one way or the other. And, it just seems like that movie is just inexplicably in development hell. And I really don't understand why you would have thought that they would have jumped on it and had it like at least had some announcement about shooting at this point, COVID or not.
Right.
You know what it's beginning to feel like? It's beginning to feel like that bonus that your boss offers you to work harder to get stuff done, and then due to some unforeseen circumstance, the bonus gets pushed out but don't worry, there's a bonus. You're going to get a bonus.
Yep.
Well, that's the hard part though, is because if it wasn't for the pandemic, it was like this stuff was on track on certain dates and this and that, we would probably already had the movie. And now it's like, when it's like you miss your timing and you miss the right opportunity, it's almost kind of like, does it make any more sense now to have it?
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I kind of look at this thing as the movie, this whole thing's like a carrot and a stick, that the carrot is the movie, but it just seems like the stick is getting longer and longer and the carrot is getting smaller and smaller.
Right.
They keep saying, there's going to be a Rick movie. There's going to be a Rick movie. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
My take on it is that if the show was still getting $15 million per episode, not only would we not be talking about this, the movie would have already aired.
Yeah.
And it probably would have made $1 billion, right? Because there would have been that much demand for it. And the fact that, the show is, now sub 2 million, mind you, there's still a lot of people watching the show. There's definitely a lot of people that watch it, on demand and watch it like binge it or watch it after, the season's over. And of course, some of those numbers are disguised because they're watching it on AMC Plus, or AMC Premiere for that matter. So we don't necessarily see all those numbers, but nevertheless, it's still like it's not the show in terms of popularity that it once was. So my point is that if the show was as popular as it was 5 years ago, not only would we not be talking about this subject, the show or the movie would have already been made and we would have already seen it.
Right.
I think that honestly, I think that the loss of Carl and the decline since Carl kind of caught them by surprise. I think if they had known that the show was going to decline as fast as it did, as soon as they got rid of Carl, they would have never gotten rid of Carl. That's what because yes, the show lost a lot of people with Negan, but the show really started its steep decline with the loss of Carl. And first it was Carl, then it was Rick, then it was Michonne. And as it's lost, those people, it's just lost a lot of people.
Because I think you're spot on that if they'd have done it sooner, then basically I think the network would have just been throwing money at Gimple saying, here, make movies, do stuff. Mm-hmm. Now they're kind of going, well, I don't know. I don't know if we can justify it or not.
I think they're looking at it going, well, I don't know if, we can, where originally they would have been like, $200 million budget. Now they're like, well, I don't know if I can do this for, we can do this for $200 million. We might only be able to do it for $60 million, And I think that's part of what's happening. It has to be.
The reason we still don't have our submarine show.
Yep.
I don't understand that whole thing. Why we don't have that yet?
Yeah,
should have. Unless it's going to be on in between, like the end of Fear and the beginning of Walking Dead, series part 2.
Something to tide us over for the summer, perhaps.
All right. Well, that was all my thoughts. Brian, do you have anything, or LT?
When I watched this, and I've seen it, I watched it twice. It seemed like it was kind of all over the place for me. Like first, they were going to escape, and then they weren't going to escape, and it just was like I couldn't figure out what the point of it was at the end. It's like, okay, well, like, why are they going to escape? What are they going to escape to? Why, what are they trying to expose even? Like, I didn't even have a clear understanding of what it is they're trying to expose. And what did Huck find that was so damning? We know that they killed them, but why? That, like, did she find out why? I think that she's still asking why, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, at the end, we get this test subject who's actually a soldier, and then of course we get F and Jadis, which I was not happy to see her. Well, I knew she was coming, but it's like, good damn Jadis, I hate your face.
They better have her like walk into her quarters, which is basically the trash heap behind the CRM.
No. Remember, she had the Connex box that had the nice.
Oh, that's true.
The nice bed and the stereo. See,
but it's covered in trash, so they think they're like, oh, she lives in the trash.
Yeah, it's covered in trash. Yes. So everything seems so convoluted at this point to me. Like, they were going to escape, but I don't have a clear understanding as to escape to what. They're going to escape, and just like their thought process is, well, we were able to get here, we'll be able to get there. Well, to get where they're at, they never had to go through the Rocky Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
They never had to go through, big passes and things like that they'd have to go through, getting to Portland, Oregon. So, I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand the point, right now. Like, it seems to me that if they, want to, topple them, they could best do it from within versus outside,
Yep.
So, but the other thing I was going to say is that at the cold open, there's this kind of cool scene where we see, the characters, each like kill a walker, or what do they call them? Empties here.
Mm-hmm.
They each kill an empty, and but it was very COVID-y. It seemed very staged and very COVID-y.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they were all very, separated, and you could just kind of see it was orchestrated in such a way that the actors were separated by at least 6 feet, if not a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but other than that, I didn't really have much to say about this episode. I didn't think it was terribly good. The fact that we only have 5 episodes left, and I still don't have any of the answers that I was wanting at the start of this season, and I don't understand the CRM either. So I don't understand why. I've said it before. So we have this major general, and it seems like his second in command is a lieutenant colonel. Well, what about all the ranks in between? And
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she's lieutenant colonel. What about colonel? What about what other kind of generals would there be? LT?
That would be from lieutenant colonel. That would be colonel, brigadier general,
right?
And then major general, because lieutenant general is actually after major general, as opposed to majors outranking lieutenants. But
okay.
So yeah, there's two grades between them.
Yeah. So where are those people?
It's a good question.
And then it seems like, then who's right beyond her? Someone who's not even an officer, right? I think this might have been in the scenes to come or something, but I believe Jadis says that she's a chief warrant officer. That's not even that's not an officer, right? Isn't that like
NCO?
Yeah.
No. They're above NCOs, but they're under regular officers.
Okay.
Typically warrant officers are specialists in some field. That you have logistics and maintenance warrant officers, and you have helicopter pilots who are warrant officers.
Well, she could be that.
So it just kind of struck me as I'm going, she's a warrant officer?
Yeah.
Unless she was a pilot or had some other specialist gig that she was doing. So if you're done, Brian, I'll...
Please take it away.
Okay. My thing that I got from all of this is it was nothing but a series of bad plans. The plan that they're going to, we're going to go to Portland. We're going to tell Portland what happened to Omaha, and we're going to use Hope's book of captured supply depots and steal a box truck and drive from, say, Albany, New York to Portland, Oregon in a box truck that we stole, that we don't know what kind of shape it's in. The thing that I had gleaned from the next part is that their whole plan was, get the box truck and drive to the back door at 2:00 with a key card and we'll meet you there. And the first thing that I thought of with that was, if this is some sort of super secret research facility that's heavily guarded, don't you think they're going to notice if a box truck they didn't expect shows up at the back door and sits there with the motor running for a while? And especially when the new recruit who's nobody on cleanup detail is sitting in the box truck trying to go for the door. I mean, did they not think that there was going to be security cameras maybe? It just seemed like it was some very one-dimensional thinking, which it's supposed to be a kid's show, but I kind of expect the characters not to be thinking like kids. It's the only thing I can think of is back when I was a kid, I had a thing where I liked spy movies. And so one day I decided that being a 10-year-old, I'm going to be a master of disguise. And so I actually constructed a very elaborate disguise to sneak out of the house. Well, of course, my mother was immediately suspicious that this short man wearing a fedora and a trench coat was coming out of her house when the only two people at home were she and I. The problem is, when you're 10, you don't think about things like that. So, like I said, it just seemed very poorly thought out, one-dimensional, what could go wrong kind of thinking. They did tease us with more answers. The scene where Huck is drinking coffee in the cafe talking to her husband, there was a newspaper that said, was it Civic Republic Military pushes back on civilian oversight committee, cites delays. There was a headline that basically makes me think that the civilian government is not really in control of the CRM, the military part, that there's some sort of rumorings and rumblings going on that the military has gone rogue doing all these strange secret projects and killing thousands of people in Omaha. So they're teasing us with stuff like that, but we're still not getting any meat. Again, they're wiggling the carrot, but I'm not seeing any really good return on that teasing investment there. The fact that we know that Huck snuck into her mom's office but got caught. So I know that's going to come back to bite her because, again, it's like, did you not think that you just can't sneak into somebody's office if your mom is like the super secret head of the up to no good military branch, that there's probably not too many people wandering in and out of her office if she's not there. I think that peeking in the safe, something's going to happen with that because it just seems obvious that it's going to.
That was my thought too.
Because if they were better at being subtle about handling stuff like that, I wouldn't think as much of it. But considering the ham-fistedness with which they have done some of the finer nuances of plot in the show just makes me think that this is going to be something bad. Since we were talking about Jadis, that I think that if it's not already obvious, I think that her life as a trash hippie is going to be another one of those long-term undercover projects like Huck was on. That was sort of her thing, that they put her out there to do whatever she was doing, gathering samples and grabbing people. And it was, that sort of makes the way she acted there right around the time that Rick got taken, it kind of makes more sense to me now, thinking that she was, some long-term operative and she wanted to get extracted. She wanted out because she was tired of being a trash hippie. She wanted to go back to being, whatever her other life was. With all that said, with all
the priest's girlfriend.
Yeah. But with all the stuff all the stuff they're doing, all these dangling story bits and the way the kids are going and the whole thing with Hope and Iris and Dad and whatever continuing secret project that Dr. Sandwich is working on. I just don't know how they're going to get this thing to where I will be happy with what comes out of the end of the series. That, I've often used the runway analogy. I know I've done it when we were talking about Discovery, where you're saying you're running out of real estate and it's getting to the point where I don't know if they can actually stick the landing and get the plane to stop before they go off the end into the bushes. But I have to throw that analogy aside, and this is turning into one of those obstacle course Japanese game shows now. And I just expect the big fist to pop out and knock them into a puddle of mud, or, have to swing over the pit of Jell-O wearing a Velcro suit and stick yourself to the wall. It's getting where, like I said, I just don't see how they're going to get this clown car loaded and stopped, and without it being lots of, okay, here's what we did. Ta-da.
Yeah.
Because doggone it, I started to like some of the characters. I was kind of invested in a few of the characters, but what they're doing with the story is just killing me. And, if you love it, then more power to you. But it's just, if they could have slowed down, and I realize what I'm about to say, if you could have said, okay, we're going to do this over a longer 2-season arc and compressed some of the longer drawn out stories and stretched some of these things where they're absolutely throwing all this information at us at a rapid fire pace. It's a matter of balance. I'll just go there. That the whole road trip and the tree house and sneaking through the tire farm, we could have mushed that in a little bit and give me more of what's going on at the research facility and people finding out things and dealing with what's going on between Huck and her mom and this other stuff. I just think that, I don't know if it's the writing or just the pacing or how the production got laid out, but it ain't working for me. I'm not saying I hate it. I'm not saying I won't watch it, but it's just not.
Well, I've been pretty vocal about it from the beginning, and it hasn't worked for me from the beginning,
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's only been a handful of times when the show has worked, and like the last couple of weeks, it's just kind of like, it like washed over me like soap. It's like I watched the episode. It's like, what happened? I don't remember. It just none of it really stuck with me, except the one thing. When I first watched it, I was a little confused because I thought that the test subject was actually Huck's husband. And I only after watching it the second time did I realize, no, that's not Huck's husband. Because I was trying to figure out, well, what did he do? But it turns out he didn't do anything. So, but yeah, it's not working for me either. And it just seems to be there to tell a certain story, like a bridge between what they did to Rick's character and what they'll do to Rick's character. And,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's about it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. I was like looking at just some of the next episodes, just the titles, it's like we have Who Are You? ? Blood and Lies, Returning Point, Death and the Dead, and The Last Light as the 10th episode. So I don't know. I kind of get this Walker, whatever, undead, whatever they're trying to research, especially with this last scene that we got, which I thought actually it was Percy, but that was only because I was like skipping back and forth trying to do my second rewatch. So I didn't even see like any of the,
Right.
in betweens. I just saw the dark haired, like whatever. And I was like, oh, is that Percy? But, Yeah, obviously he was just, I guess, a soldier. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's all about, this is going towards the cure or the understanding. But we'll have to see. It's just they have 5 episodes and this is it. So it's kind of like, this is all we're going to get. They can't be like, just kidding. We have a season 3. It's like, you said it was.
Yeah. To the people that have been lenient on them, saying, well, that they're only here for 2 seasons. Well, it's like, okay, well, they're only here for 2 seasons. So get to it.
Yeah.
you got 5 more episodes. Better get to it and finish your story. 'Cause the way it is right now, it just seems like
they're running out of time. Like it's just,
it just seems like they're not rushing to tell a story. They're just, rushing to hook up.
I guess my thing would be the first part of it was like when you typed your paper in high school and you double spaced the paper so it would take up more pages. And then you realized that you were going to go long. So you went back to single space and actually closed up the spacing with your typing so that it jammed everything together. And I realized that probably went over the head of about 75% of the people that never typed a report with a typewriter. But I'm just saying that I have to, I'm going with you, Brian, that it just seems like they got too much. They didn't have enough going on in the beginning, and now they got too much going on.
Yeah, just get on with it. And to that, and I think we should get on with it.
Yeah, let's get through this. All right. Well, we've got some listener feedback, and Deetta from Detroit, she said, on my feedback for The World Beyond, Jadis has arrived on the scene and is the head honcho in charge? Question mark. So if I'm understanding this right, the girl's daddy's girlfriend is doing walker creation trials on humans, and he doesn't know? Is this what the storyline is about, the secret of experimenting on humans in the CRM? The A's and B's determine if you're a test puppet? I don't know, just throwing stuff out there, just trying to make sense. Hopefully we get some clues about Rick soon.
Yep. So Glenn from Toronto actually gave it a rating and said 7 out of 10, lots of hugging going on. So at last, both girls are reunited with their father, but of course it wasn't going to go as planned, with them all making a run for it. Just wonder who gave up Silas. Was it Dennis, who was suspicious all along, or were they all being watched anyway? Or did Indira spill the beans after their father told her all about their escape plan? When someone says you can trust someone on TV, it's always the opposite. Indira is probably the one who's been testing subjects then from Omaha and the campus that the father was not aware of, which he is now, which he knows now about this CRM plan thanks to Huck. Shocking and puzzling that they need to kill 100,000 people to put their plan in motion. Will Rick Grimes please step forward and show yourself?
Indira is the one that's testing subjects? I don't see how that could be.
I was going to say, is that
Indira's the head of that artist place?
Yeah. I figured it was
so.
Yeah.
Like I said, I always blame Dr. Sandwich, but that's me.
I think it's Dr. Sandwich. It's not Indira. I think she's too busy with her diabetes.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Diabetes.
Yes. Yes. Wilford Brimley. Wilford Brimley School of Pronunciation for Diabetes. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Glennis. All right. Renee is our last feedback, and she says, The World Beyond was so freaking boring and corny. I fell asleep, but I heard the garbage lady is back, so I may try to watch again. Please, Lord Jeebus, hurry up and bring Rick Grimes back so I can move on. Shrug. Yes, I agree. That's the thing. It's like, and we'll move on after this because this is the end, but it's like, this almost seems like if they're going through all this, the show came out of Rick Grimes being taken away from us, like they're telling the story. So like, are we going to see Rick Grimes at the end? Like,
I don't think so.
I know, and that's kind of like, even if it's like previous footage, it's kind of like,
Yeah,
you got to give us something, because it's, Jadis is there. Jadis is the one that took Rick Grimes. Like, if he's not showing up somewhere, they could even do like, where he's just laying on a table, but we can kind of see that it's him, but it's not really him.
I mean, come on, you could deep fake Andrew Lincoln in there.
Yeah, totally. Or at least give somebody's kid the chance to do a blurry whatever, the deer. Like that would still work.
the deer.
Like, even if it wasn't a great Rick Grimes deep fake, it was like,
Yeah,
that was enough. Like, it's a sim. That's fine.
Yep.
All right. Let's get on to news, ratings, and info.
There's a couple weird stories on the news.
All right. For season 7, episode 3, Fear the Walking Dead got a 0.18 in the 18 to 49 demographic with only 871,000 viewers. This compares to the last week's 0.22 in the 18 to 49 with 955,000 viewers. In the 25 to 54, it got a 0.27, and in the 50 and over, it got a 0.53. Last week, it got a 0.35 in the 25 to 54 and a 0.54 in the 50 and over. So all the way down for all of them, and including The Walking Dead World Beyond. For season 2, episode 5, it got a 0.09 in the 18 to 49 with only 510,000 viewers. This is down from 0.14 in the 18 to 49 and 688,000 viewers. No Talking Dead again this week. In terms of the parrots, we got The Walking Dead ended up one notch from number 8 to number 7, but with a lower number. It rated a 40.7 times the demand of an average show versus last week's 42.5 times the demand of an average show. So, like I say, better numbers, but not as good. So that's it for the ratings. And that's it for the parrots. So on to how to contact us.
All right. We want to encourage you to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Walking Dead TTM. To submit your theories and feedback, most people post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/Walking Dead TTM. You can send us email. That's walkingdead@talkthroughmedia.com. You can also use our feedback forum. That's found on our website at talkthroughmedia.com/feedback. You can leave us voicemail if you'll call 216-232-6146, but remember, your voicemails are capped at 3 minutes. All of our new episodes are on YouTube. Just search for Talk Through Media and remember to subscribe and click the bell to get notified when we have new videos. Those videos go out first before the podcast does.
And to support us, like and review the Talk Through Media Facebook page at facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. The best way you can support us is in our Patreon. You can find that at patreon.com/walkingdeadtalkthrough. And we would like to thank our Patreon supporters, Clip McCollum, Renee Murray, Lawrence Todd, the guy over there,
Hello.
Kyle, me, and Dieta Patterson. And remember, Dieta, Clint, and Renee will be getting an early version of the episode this week. Subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or your podcast client of choice. And while you're there, give us a rating and review.
I have something to add to that.
Okay, go for it.
Forgot to mention. We want to thank Renee for her 5-star review on podchaser.com. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. Awesome.
So, yeah. And I mentioned last week that there'd be a link to Podchaser on all of the blog posts. I have since done that. So if you go to the, the website and you click on an episode, you will see the link to Podchaser. So It's part of the blog post every time.
No, that's good. And podchaser.com is actually a good place where you can actually just rate the individual episodes, or you can also rate the whole podcast. So it's a really nice place.
Yes.
And the positive reviews you give us on Podchaser help us buck the algorithm so that more people will find out about us.
Yep. And that is always good. Also, though, you can also remember to share our posts on Facebook and Twitter when we post them, or tell a friend, because word of mouth definitely is the best way to get us new listeners. All right, where else can we be listened to, Brian?
Well, as far as the three of us, nowhere else right now. But I was a guest on the new Star Trek Prodigy by Rebinge It this week, which is another podcast that the Talk Through Media Network is doing, and that is actually on the Star Trek Discovery and the Star Trek Picard feed, but it has its own feed that you can actually find it. And the last time I checked, it was the number one podcast for Star Trek Prodigy on Apple Podcasts. So anyway, so yeah, look for it, Star Trek Prodigy at Rebinge It, and that is a children's friendly feed. So, and anyway, so that show started last Thursday, and I was a guest on the first episode, and James and Kim will be doing that for the next 10 weeks until that show's season is done. And then in a few more weeks, actually it's not that far away now, a little more than 2, Star Trek Discovery will be starting, and Ruthie and I will be podcasting about Star Trek Discovery. So that will be on the Star Trek Discovery podcast feed and the Talk Through Media all-inclusive feed. So that's for season 4, and 13 episodes to come.
Yay.
Yes. Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be pretty amazing. So,
yep. All right. Next episode is Fear the Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 4, Breathe With Me, written by Nazrin Chowdhury and David Johnson, directed by Tara Nicole Weir. Description: while searching for Wendell, Sarah crosses path with a dangerous survivor. World Beyond Season 2, Episode 6 is titled Who Are You? ? Written by Rohit Kumar and directed by Heather Capello. Description is: a member of the group becomes a target of an investigation. All right, so until next time, I'm Kyle.
I'm Brian.
And I'm LT.
And this is Fear the Walking Dead Talk. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.